Hey, what's up? This is Dion Lewis. My guest today is someone I've known my whole life. This is my family, and sometimes the people closest to you are doing the most important work. And you don't even fully realize it until you sit down and really listen. My cousin, his name is Royce Wright. He's a community advocate out of the Quad Cities, and what he's doing right there for at-risk youth and unhoused communities is real. Boots on the ground, no cameras needed kind of work. In this conversation, we get into his experience working with at-risk youth, what it actually looks like when a young person is struggling and covering it up, why trust is everything when you're trying to reach them, and why showing up consistently might be the most powerful thing you can do as an advocate. Now, Roy shares a story about a chance encounter that turned into a viral moment and what it revealed about just how fast somebody can end up without a place to sleep and without anybody knowing they need help. This is a good one, something I was really excited to do. It's just two cousins having an honest conversation about our communities and what they are up against and what it looks like to do something about it. All right, let's get into it. Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Healthy Project podcast. I'm your host, Dion Lewis. Something we don't talk a whole lot about on this podcast when it comes to public health is the mental health of kids and advocating for them. And sometimes that means advocating for their families as well. Today's guest is someone that I am not unfamiliar with. This man has known me since since I was a baby. Man, I got my family. When I say my family, I mean like my real family. I have my cousin with me who's a community leader in the Quad Cities, doing great work, and has a heart and a passion for saving these kids and doing and leading them in a great way. So I have Royce Wright with me today. Royce, thank you so much for being on the podcast, man. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you, cuz, man. And hats off to you, man. You've been doing your thing, man. And when I sit back and think about back in the day, right? When I think about back in the day, man, I'm like, man, my little cousin grew up, man. I love what you're doing, cuz. I love what you're doing.
No, I appreciate that. That means so much to me. But I want to start first with, talk about where did your passion for the youth, where did that start?
Man, you know what, man, to be honest, man, I've always had people tell me that they think I work good with kids. I've always had people tell me that. And, I used to get cold feet just thinking about it because I'm like, man, am I really, can I do that? Am I really ready to do that? So I want to say it really started probably 2017. I kind of started working with my daughter. She came out with a video. Well, actually, I kind of helped her come out with a video. But fidget spinners were what was really relevant back then, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You remember the fidgets?
Had us in a chokehold, yep.
Yeah. So it was the fidget spinners. We decided to write a song, because she was rapping and stuff like that. So we decided to write a song, and then after the song, we launched a video, that we did by the river, and I feel like from that point right there, man, just us getting all the kids together to come down there and do a video with this fidget spinner song, I feel like at that point, I really start getting really passionate. Like, you know what? Like, this is something I might can do, as far as maybe organizing videos and, writing songs for kids and stuff like that. Because, I've always been big into music, but at the same time, I kind of wanted to start gearing it towards kids, man, from this particular video, man, that we launched, so from there, man, I feel like I was working off and on with kids, man, here and there, whatever. So I was kind of flirting with the idea, right? I was kind of flirting with it, just to see if I could, deal with it. But I want to say maybe in 2022 is when I actually kind of dove in, man. And, hey, the rest is history. I've been doing it ever since, man, like fully in it.
Right. So when you say you're working with kids, I want people to understand like the 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 behaviors of kids that you're
Mhm.
working with, and like there's something about working with kids. I worked with kids for a very short time when I got out of college, and there's something in you that you have to be able to look past what they're presenting to you to see who they are. Does that make sense? Like,
Indeed, it does.
a kid can present to you, chest all out, doing the most, but having a heart to be like, okay, this you ain't really like that, and like just what walk me through that process of how you want to keep a mindset to really want to get to the bottom of what the problem is with some of these kids.
I think, man, to be honest, man, I feel like a lot of these kids, they want attention, and they see a lot of stuff on the internet and they portray a certain image. And that's kind of what I try to let them know, man. Like, figure out who you are. We got to figure out who
Mhm.
you really are. Don't go to the grave trying to be a real ninja, right? Trying to be
Mhm.
a real ninja. Don't go to the grave doing that. Pull out who you really are. Because a lot of these kids, man, are very good kids, man. They're very good kids. And I think it's kind of like a identity crisis some of them might be going through. So that's something I definitely bring to the table, man. I want kids to pull out and see who they really are. And sometimes, man, it goes back to the culture, man. I'm thinking about as far as me when I was raised, you know, um, I couldn't cry, right? Remember, don't
Mm.
cry.
Yep.
You better stop crying. You better. But the thing is, sometimes we have to cry to get that out. By me not crying, I'm not being myself. I'm covering up my feelings, right? So
Mm.
I think some of these kids, man, be covering up and they try to portray a certain image because the culture that they come from. You know,
Yeah, and you bring up a great point that leads into kind of like this next section of what I want to talk about, and that is the mental health of our youth. And what are you seeing with these kids that you're like, man, like there you are without having a clinical background, you get like, hey, I know you're depressed, bro. Like you are going through something. How do you work through that with some of these kids?
it takes patience, man. It takes patience. It's something that you have to be patient with these kids, man, because some of them don't understand that they got some mental stuff going on, you know. So it takes a lot of patience, man, and it takes us to understand that, you know, a lot of this is coming from adverse childhood trauma, man. You know, it's coming from there, So we got to understand their family dynamic. We got to understand where their family dynamic is at, right? We got to understand that it's stuff going on in the home. Okay. And we got to understand that they're kids. This is the first thing, but patience, man. We got to be patient with them, man, because again, some of these kids they just don't understand that, they got some stuff going on upstairs, man, that needs to be addressed, so.
Right, right. And it seemed like, man, just from afar, that some of the kids, they resonate with you, or it sounds like you might have some knuckleheads that don't want to listen, but for the most part, when you talk, kids listen. And you feel like that is because you've been where you are, like that mentality. So anything they're saying to you, it ain't new to you, and you know how to guide them the right way.
Well, I mean, some of it is lived experience, man. I feel like, yeah, I definitely I'm definitely empathetic to where they're coming from. I know exactly where they're coming from, you know. And some of them listen, some of them listen,
Hmm.
some don't listen, some of them might have to go through it, But for the most part, man, I feel like, I don't know. I mean, I get this all the time, man. People say I bring a level of diversity to the table where, some of the kids kind of can relate to how I talk or, my mannerisms and things like that. So I think that's definitely a big part, I think it's a big part from them knowing, hey, I've been there, and hey, I might talk or dress like you, or whatever. That way, we could start building that trust, man. Because in the end, man, if the kid don't trust us, they're not gonna open up.
Man,
They're not gonna open up.
man, that's real. And just from my brief experience working with kids, not only if they don't trust you, they're not going to open up, but they read you like a book. They know
Indeed.
exactly who you are before you even say anything. Talk
Mhm.
talk a little bit about the authenticity you need to have when you're trying to help kids through mental health concerns, through behavioral issues. Like, obviously, I'm not Royce Wright, but there's a level of authenticity that I have to bring to the table so a kid knows that I really care about them, right?
Mhm.
Like, so was there reluctance to bring your full self? Because sometimes one thing can trigger a 1997 Royce.
Indeed. No. Well, to be honest, man, and I hear what you're saying, man. And sometimes it do be like, oh, you just not getting it, right? But we
Right,
don't display that, right? We don't display that. It's kind of just like you just can't cut no corners with them, man. You cannot cut
right.
corners with the kids, man. And that's one thing that I don't do. I'll tell them stories, about my background and things like that. I'm not going to disclose everything, right? I'm not going to
Right,
disclose everything, but at the same time, we got to keep it real with the kids, man. We can't sit here and tell the kids one thing and it's really like when I think about my kids, for instance, right? It's about the modeling of what I'm doing,
mm,
right?
right,
You know, I could tell them this, do that, do that. But what am I doing? You know, we got to show the kids. We got to be that model for the kids. And the kids know when you're putting on. They know when you're putting
oh
on. They
my
know when you
gosh,
really, really
yeah,
care about them. So it's very important that we keep showing up, man. Consistency. We got to be consistent with them, man. Some of these kids, man, don't have no dad, no mama, nobody in their life, man. So when
right,
when when, when people show up, that says a lot. But still, it's just that trust factor. You got to build that trust, and how you build that trust, man, is showing up.
right. How do you if you were to be, you know, talking to those that maybe they do have a passion for the youth and they want to learn how can they advocate, but they're not boots on the ground, they're not front line, they're not doing the work in the way that you are, or even have um not only the lived experience but the academic experience that you have, or the education you have around youth. How can somebody advocate for youth rights and youth health and mental health?
Well, first they gotta understand, man. Again, these kids come from a background of a lot of trauma, you know, and they have to understand that they can't go into the situation yelling, right?
Mhm.
They got to watch their body language. They have to watch their tone, you know, um, and they got to give that kid a chance to talk.
Mm.
Got to give him a chance to talk, man. We can't just go in there, man. Just no. We got to give that kid a chance to talk. So I would say definitely, man. Watch your tone, watch your body language. Be patient and listen. You know,
Right.
coming into like off top, them are some of the things you really, really gotta consider, man, when going into the field, man, and working with kids, man.
Right. I was watching just it's like this social media clip the other day of this brother that was he was a social worker, and his main job was trying to keep kids out of the system. And he was telling the story about how he had this kid, and he said similar to what you've been saying. All this kid needed was a hug, somebody to talk to him, a Xbox or a PlayStation to play. You know what I'm saying? Like something little. And they went to court, but the mother requested that this kid get on probation. And he wasn't even doing nothing crazy. And the social worker was like, that broke him so bad that like he just left the work because he was like, what are we doing? You know,
Hmm.
one, how do you address that in the sense of how do we keep these babies out of the system? Because we know once they get into the system, it's hard to get out.
Indeed.
And like, how what is your approach? What are some of your tips that kind of keep these kids out of the system, even when you see they're going that way?
Mhm. Man, I'm saying that's a very good question, man. I can say this, man. And you make me think about when you just said the mother just kind of, she she wanted her kid on probation. Man. I feel like some of these parents, man, don't know what to do. I feel like they don't know what to do. Some of these parents are kids themselves. You know,
Mm,
and in the end, it all has to do with mental health. It boils down to the mental health, man. So with that being said, I mean, we could work with these kids all we want to, but if we take them back home and the house is not healthy, what does that look like? You know, what does that look like? So it's sad, man, but some of these parents are really out here struggling, you know, they're
right.
struggling. And, I mean, me being a parent, I mean, let's keep it real, man. We have to examine what we are doing or not doing as parents, right? First, we got we,
Mhm.
we, we got to figure that out. We can't keep pointing the finger. We got to examine us first to see, okay, you know what? Little Billy getting in trouble at school. What am I doing as a parent, right? What am I not doing as a parent? We got to explore that first before we start pointing the finger at everybody else, man. I'm not saying that it can't be no other causes why little Billy is acting out, because it could be. I've seen other causes, but at the same time, us as parents, we have to be held accountable, man, of what we might be doing or not doing. Because at the end of the day, it's there are kids, and we
Right.
gotta ask ourselves them questions. You know,
Right. No, that's real. That's real. Taking a step back and looking at what you're doing, which is sometimes the hardest part, is like, am I causing the problem?
yeah,
Man,
yeah, yeah.
this is sorry, go ahead. Was you finna say something?
No, I wasn't gonna say nothing. You're right.
Yeah. So this kind of leads into like kind of this next part because man, you have started a whole conversation in the Quad Cities around the homeless. And I want to say, bro, before maybe like an hour ago, I'm just scrolling on TikTok and it sounded like you were talking to a young man who thought he said he thought you was going to kidnap him.
Mm,
And he had just became homeless, right? And that is not only that is that a big problem in the Quad City area that you're trying to tackle and you're raising that question, but it is a nationwide issue. And so one, I want you to break down that story for me of you running into this young man, asking him if he needs support. Like how did that start? Walk me through that.
yeah, man. It's just it's really amazing how God works, man. He puts people in places at certain times, for certain reasons, So I'm doing one of my videos, in front of the building, and I'm uptown. I'm uptown, someplace where uh, it's not heavily, it's not heavily, it's not a lot of unhoused people up in this particular
Mhm.
area. So it was just kind of by chance, It's not like I was in the
Right.
downtown area. But in any event, I'm doing a video, and in the midst of me ending the video, I look over, I see somebody walking past. So I'm like, hey, hey buddy, I'm like, you know if this building is vacant, like how long has it been vacant? I remember it used to be, a pool hall. And he's like, yeah, he's like, oh, it used to be a pool hall, a long time ago. And he's like, yeah, I can't remember what it was, but I think it's closed now. I'm like, okay, so we started the dialogue or whatever. And I asked him, I'm like, where you from? He's like, I'm from around here. I'm like, okay, well, my name's Royce Wright. I introduced myself, and I told him, I said, I advocate, for the homeless in these buildings, just kind of sitting around vacant. And he immediately started crying, man. You know, he immediately started crying and said, I'm homeless. You know, and I'm like,
Mm.
wow. And I'm just sitting back thinking, like, man, if I wouldn't have said nothing to that young man, he would. he just walked on past, and I wouldn't have knew. He wouldn't have knew no different or whatever. And there's no telling what he might have been getting ready to go do, man. You just never know, because by him being that emotional, just by me saying I advocate for the homeless, and he just immediately start crying. That kind of struck me, but I knew it was a work of God, man. So I gave the man a ride down to the shelter, and just kind of just made sure he had some place to go for the night, if nothing else. But
Hmm.
yeah, man, it's bad out here, Corey. It's bad. As much as we want to think that the homeless are okay outside and sleeping outside, and they want to sleep outside. I'm not saying some of them don't, right? But it's still some ones out here, man. People become homeless so fast, man. It's just like it's a reoccurring things, man. A reoccurring thing. We need some more buildings open, man. We really need some more buildings open. You know.
Yeah, man. And to your point, and in the video, even I want to make sure this is I want to highlight this because that young man didn't even know the shelter you mentioned to him was even open. So he didn't even know about the resources available.
Yeah,
Um, and so just being able to be out, like I said, in the street and be like, "Hey, no, I could take you there. It's open. I could take you."
indeed.
Um, Even if it is just one night, it's one night is better than no nights.
Yeah,
Right now, a Band-Aid is better than nothing,
there
right?
you go.
Like, yes, we want to see everybody housed, but man, a Band-Aid is better than nothing. Um, what first drew your attention to this homeless issue in the Quad Cities?
Well, Corey, to be honest, man, it's kind of one of them things, man. You can't ignore. You might want to put a blind eye to it, but it's something you just can't ignore, man. As you know, man, I've been incarcerated, you know, more than half my life, just off and on or whatever, man. But not only that, I've been homeless. So, not only have I been locked up, but I've been homeless as well. So it's kind of one of the things that I've been down there, you know, um, in the shelters, with some of these
Mhm, mhm.
individuals, So I can't really say that I've ever been able to ignore it, but it just seems like certain policies have changed, in the Quad Cities with certain ordinances. How you pronounce it? Ordinance,
Yep.
right? With the regulations as far as, okay, we can't have a shelter this close to a school, a park, or whatever. So, some new regulations had kicked off, and that kind of had, closed a couple. I want to say closed at least one shelter in Illinois, and it kind of just started. It started making it to where some of the unhoused were kind of pushed out, right? Okay, we ain't got no shelter here, so y'all got to go over here. Just per se,
Right,
nobody really saying that, but this is kind of what it was.
right.
So it's this big thing, man. About we need emergency shelter, we need an overflow shelter. People are out here freezing, people are out here dying, and it kind of just kind of sparked it back in me, like, wow, man, like, okay, so yeah, these people are really out here just laying around, you know, dying. That's the main
Mhm,
thing. So my thing was, I asked God, man, I'm like, man, how can I help? I don't have no money, how can I help? And the first place he did, man, he sent me to my storage. He sent me to my storage, and I dang near cleared it out, man. Just went downtown, man, on both sides, just passing out coats and long sleeve shirts and pants and stuff like that, man, to people, and after that I feel like he told me to be a voice, you know. So one day I'm riding down, the street, and I see this big building. It used to be a grocery store, right? It used to be a Save a Lot grocery store. And I see a big for sale sign, in the parking lot. And some told me, man, just to pull over, man, and do a video in front of this building, and I did it, didn't really, I felt a little uneasy about it, because I know how people are about the buildings, and, oh, you're, you're putting too much light on these buildings, on these abandoned buildings. But hey, man, I'm saying, man, like, people are out here freezing and dying, man. You know,
Right.
come on, man. Like it's people out here really going through some mental things, man, and they don't understand that it's not okay to sleep outside in the cold. You know,
Right.
so that's kind of what kicked it off, man. And I kind of just kept doing it, man. You know,
Right. That's what I really enjoyed about it, in the sense of like it was a very simple thing. But something is a huge problem and people have the same question when you start seeing the comments and everybody's like, "Thank you for doing this. Yes. What are we doing?" And now you even got people even posting their own videos about abandoned buildings. And it raises more questions like, what are we doing with these abandoned buildings? Like, why aren't we utilizing them to support? And I'm sure there's a lot of red tape, there are a lot of steps to do it, but it doesn't change the fact that we have a homeless problem, we have buildings. Has that conversation even came up? What are we doing? And if we're not going to raise the question, then if we can't do the work ourselves, we can at least raise the question and raise awareness around it.
indeed, indeed, definitely. And that's what I've been doing. And that's not saying that I'm not willing to do the work. Because man, like again, I've been in shelters, I've worked in shelters, right? I volunteered, in shelters and things like that. So it's not the plus. Not only that, man. Man, since I've been on this journey, like it's been very overwhelming. How many people have
Mm,
been reaching out to me, just kind of like, man, hey, man, you need some help, man. I help you. I work on houses, I work on buildings, I know how to do this, and I've had a lot of people, man, that has a lot of different skills that are willing to help. And I know it's not just as easy as okay, just put a whole bunch of people in the buildings. I understand that,
right,
but I feel like, man, people willing to volunteer, to kind of help out. I don't really think that's the problem. It's just it's the funds, man. It's the funds, and people trying to dot all the i's across all the t's, man. People are kind of beating their feet when it comes to that, man. And it kind of sucks, And I mean, here it
right.
is. I mean, it's getting warm out now, so I think the the unhoused problem is kind of gonna you know die down in a lot of people's minds, so to speak, because they're not out there freezing. But what about next winter? You know, what about
Well,
this
even
summer when
shoot,
it's 100 degrees?
that's what I'm saying. Like the in here in the Midwest, we have all seasons, and in the winter it could be -10, -20. In the summer, it could be 110, and
Indeed,
people are freezing and people are passing out. It does. There's still going to be. You need to be warm and you need to be cool. You know what I mean? Like it's still going to continue to be a problem. And I know that you have like you have a GoFundMe to try to help at least do your own part in this problem, and become a solution. What is your overall goal with this GoFundMe? And I'll make sure I link that in the description of this episode. But what is
indeed.
your goal? What is your hope that you can do with the funds that you plan to raise?
I'm hoping, overall that we can open up some more spaces for the unhoused and the at-risk youth. If not just a couple buildings, we need another overflow shelter, right? Some of
Hmm.
these at-risk youth, they need another space, right? I mean, we have. Don't get me wrong, we got people out down here that has a lot of different programs for the youth, But at the same time, the youth they need different things. They get bored, they need different places, right? So
Right.
overall, I would love to open up an emergency flow shelter, right, from when other shelters are full or whatever. And I would like to open up another youth space. We're
Right.
asking for $100,000. That's the goal. That's the goal. It's probably gonna take more, but that's the goal right now. So that's what we're trying to do, here in the Quad City area. As far as and the GoFundMe man is creating safe spaces for the unhoused and at-risk youth. So that's the name of the GoFundMe. And we're just asking, man, that people donate whatever they can. I know times are hard. Everybody don't have it like that. I understand that. So, donate what you can. That's all we're asking, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, cuz Royce, thank you so much for being on the podcast. For those that want to connect with you, learn more about you and learn more about your vision and your mission, where can they reach out to you?
Man, and I know you link, you put the links below.
Yeah.
But just to kind of put it out there. So please follow me on Facebook, follow me on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, all right, TikTok, right? I'm on all them platforms. Please follow me. I tell people all the time, me and Facebook, we got a love and hate relationship. They didn't try to shut me down before, so make sure you guys follow me on the other platforms, just in case. If you want to keep updated and what I got going on and stuff like that with the community, man, please follow me on all those platforms. That way you can keep up, you can stay up to date on what we have coming up here in the future.
Perfect. Well, again, cuz thank you so much for being on and talking about your mission. And everybody, thank you for listening to the Healthy Project podcast. I'll holler at you next time. And that's a wrap on today's episode. I want to thank Royce for coming on and having a great conversation with me. This is a kind of conversation that reminds me exactly why I started this podcast. If this episode moved you, do something with that feeling. Share it. Send it to somebody, and if you're in a position to support Royce's GoFundMe to create safe spaces for the unhoused and at-risk youth in the Quad Cities, the link is in the show notes. As always, thank you for listening to the Healthy Project podcast. I'm Dion Lewis. Take care of yourself, take care of your community, and I'll see you next week.